Hello to you, I'm Roshni Gajjar, and today you are joining us to pay it forward in this special feature episode. I'm talking to Melanie Manson, Chief Fundraiser at the St. Francis Hospice. Earlier this week at StratAstute Consulting, we received a call to action that we simply could not ignore. That call to action came from Melanie, and I thought to invite her to speak to us today on Lift as we Rise and connect with our community. So with what happened last year, the St. Francis Hospice, which is based in the Nelson Mandela Bay, is facing a going concern risk. And today, we hope that either you or your business can find it in your budget to offer some support to the St. Francis Hospice to sustain the excellent palliative care and support that they offer to patients who are suffering with cancer, HIV/AIDS, and motor neuron disease. Interesting to note that up to 85% of the people who receive care and support from the hospice cannot afford to pay for it. So Melanie, thank you for taking up our invitation and coming to speak with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So Melanie, you sent out the email to the business community in the Nelson Mandela Bay. Tell us what led to the call for help.
Okay, well, really, Roshni, like most nonprofit organizations in PE, our hospice has been very hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of our inability to host fundraising events, which made up a large part of our income stream. And I think the financial strain that COVID has placed on so many businesses, large and small alike, has seen a huge diminishment in the amount of donations that we receive. And really, we are now in a position where we are barely sustainable. So we've got to try and pull out all the stops wherever we can to create new income streams to keep this vital service in our metro going.
Thank you, Melanie. You know, the care and support that you offer is absolutely critical. And what struck me most when I read it is that the type of services you offer are those that we often don't think about in our day-to-day lives when we and our loved ones are healthy and taken care of. So let's understand the services that St. Francis Hospice offers a little bit better. Can you describe to us your services, a little bit about your facilities, and also your reach?
Certainly. So St. Francis Hospice offers home-based palliative care to people who are in the terminal stages of an illness such as cancer, HIV/AIDS, or motor neuron disease. These are the three categories of disease where our expertise lies. So our highly trained and skilled nursing sisters visit patients in their home to administer pain and symptom control, to provide emotional and psychological support, both to the patient and to their families, and to empower the family to care for their loved one in a peaceful and dignified manner. Roshni, we find that once people have experienced a long journey with an illness, let's say, for instance, like cancer, and they've tried all the curative therapies, the chemotherapies, the radiation, and they are told that there's nothing further that can be done for them, we see that there's a worldwide trend that people want to go home. They want to go home to die. They want to spend their last days in their own bed, surrounded by their loved ones, and the wonderful comfort that something like a beloved little dog brings on your bed, a cozy, warm home environment. So it is all about ensuring that the patient is, number one, pain-free, and is comfortable and is not suffering. And that the end of their life is not a traumatic experience, but rather a peaceful one. Many or most of our patients are actually indigent people. or otherwise extremely poor. And hospice's philosophy is that you should be entitled to exactly the same care, whether you live in the leafy suburbs of Walmer or an outside shack in Motherwell. So no fee is actually raised for the care that is provided by our nursing sisters.
Wow. So you're running essentially, let's call it a business that's offering palliative care to mostly indigent people, and you're not getting an income stream from it. So I can understand that your model relies largely then on, you know, the kindness and the donations that comes in from, I guess, the community and from your funders. Can you share with us how that model works, Melanie? How do you find the funds in a good year to sustain your business?
Okay. Well, shall I touch on the 2020 crisis and the impact that it's had on our hospice, and then I'll embroider on our various income streams and how they've been affected. Fundraising, as I've mentioned before, is a huge part of any hospice because it actually capacitates the care, the sisters. After all, our sisters are highly trained and skilled people who have to earn a salary. So with the onset of COVID, all fundraising events had to be cancelled, and they accounted for just over R1 million of our annual income. Projects like the last night of the proms, for instance, I think that's quite a well-known project in PE, that generates over 500,000 Rand in income. And of course, that has been cancelled for the past 2 years, as have all our events, which have always been focused in the arts and entertainment arena. We've seen a dramatic drop in corporate and individual donations as both individuals and businesses have struggled with the effects of the pandemic. For us, we once enjoyed lotto funding. We've just been advised that there are no further lotto funds available to us. We were subsidized by the Department of Health and Social Welfare, as is absolutely correct, because we are really essentially doing their work in the community. So in the past, we would get about R1 million a year subsidy, which no longer happens. We've been informed that that is no longer available to us. So already you can see we are in quite a serious situation here. Our current financial trajectory looks quite frightening as we face the prospect of being sustainable for just over another year. And I must say that I cannot bear to think of a community where there is not a hospice, without a hospice. Who will care and oversee these vulnerable people in the times of their suffering?
Wow, Melanie. So currently, I mean, there's a huge drive and a focus on vaccines and the vaccine rollout. So I guess that is a focus for businesses, for healthcare companies to really get that going. And I guess from an extra funding point of view or corporate social investment, I can understand that those budgets are really targeted at that at the moment. So Melanie, you know, just to understand a bit better, what is your reach? Where are the people that you most serve? Are they all based in the Nelson Mandela Bay or are they in other areas also?
Okay, our head office is based in Taybank, and our reach is the whole of the metro region as far as Uitenhage and all the surrounding townships. And then we also operate a satellite hospice out of Humansdorp, which serves the Jeffreys Bay, St. Francis, and surrounding farmlands area. So our patient load is, and remember, this is end-of-life care, so it's relatively short-term care, is somewhere between 210 and 270 patients monthly.
Wow. And how many specialist caregivers or nurses do you have helping you at any one point in time, Melanie?
Okay, our total staff complement is 45 people. That's including our COHA office, of which 31 of those are medically based people. Those are nursing sisters, 2 medical doctors, social workers. Of course, there's an enormous need for social workers at a time like this, and caregivers who assist our nurses in the communities.
And so I understand that the caregivers are going out to the people most needing your services as opposed to coming into a facility. Did I understand it correctly, Melanie?
Yes. Roshni, many, many years ago, the hospice had an inpatient unit, but we found, okay, funding became a huge issue to keep this very expensive facility going. And that coincided with this worldwide move away from institutionalized care for end-of-life patients. So our inpatient unit was closed. So the entire thrust of our work is home-based care. It is going to see people in their homes and caring for them in their homes.
Melanie, I'm mindful that our region, and I think it's a global phenomena, that there is a growing aging population. The illnesses that you specialize in, i.e. cancer, HIV, AIDS, and motor neuron disease. I mean, I'm sure we all know someone who suffer from one or all three of those. And over 2020, you know, what I heard a lot of people feeling quite disillusioned about is that as much as in a normal environment, it is safe to go and assist the elderly, your parents, your grandparents, family, friends. You know, over 2020, and certainly now with the third wave at risk in South Africa, it's that much more difficult to go and offer that support because of the risk of COVID. So have you seen an increase in the need for people for extra care, and have you seen a rise in patients coming to the St. Francis Hospice, sorry?
Well, there has been a rise in numbers. Look, our medical staff have been on the front line throughout this pandemic. And remember how sensitive this is. These are people, the last thing on earth we want to do is shorten anybody's life. So our nurses, I mean, are so well protected. They have such excellent protective gear. And there has been the general fear that has surrounded COVID has isolated people, and even ill people, probably especially ill people. But we have just had to work through it and do the best that we can with it and continue offering a consistent service in keeping people as comfortable as we can.
You know, Melanie, if I can share a personal story, in the last week, we've had a situation in our home which was completely accidental. My mother had a slight slip and landed up having a shoulder replacement a week ago. And in trying to plan for her being discharged from hospital and how we take care of her, you know, the specialist did explain that we have cases where patients don't have the care and the support at home. So on that basis, then we find alternative means to offer them the help and support so that they're comfortable, they prevent further injury. And I can understand that in that last phase of life, this becomes absolutely vital. And what you said earlier about the fact that most people want to go home and just be comfortable and surrounded by things and people that they love, that is most important. And that's what your service is able to help them with.
Yes.
So Melanie, you know, to those listening in today, we do tap into business leaders and community leaders and professionals. So if someone would like to offer support to the St. Francis Hospice, how would they go about doing that?
Okay. I think, Roshni, at the moment, our biggest drive is our Hospice Hero program, where listeners can sign up for a 50 or 100 Rand a month debit order donation. In fact, it can be whatever amount they are comfortable with. We desperately need to grow this project, as it is one of the very few means of certain income which we can bank on. So our Hospice Hero program, we do other things like we operate 3 hospice second shops. One of them is run from our hospice in Taybank, one is run from 4th Avenue in Newton Park, and our Coho satellite has a second shop in Humansdorp. So we also get donated the odd wonderful and interesting antique and collectible, and we do things like silent auctions. So there's a big second-hand market, and we encourage people to support that. And then, of course, any general monetary donation is most welcome and would contribute towards our future sustainability.
Thank you, Melanie. And where may they contact you in this regard?
Okay, I'm based at the hospice, and my email address is Melanie, Melanie, at St. Francis Hospice, StFrancisHospice.za.org, very importantly. Otherwise, our telephone number is 041 360 7070. And if anybody is interested, I would be happy to send out any form of proposal or whatever is needed.
Thank you, Melanie. So, we were chatting a little bit earlier before we started today, and I was just saying that this almost falls into that in-between or gray zone. So often we speak as part of our life planning. We speak to a financial planner, we speak to our trusted advisors, etc., and plan for retirement, plan for our estates, etc., and plan as best as we can for healthcare facilities and medical aid benefits post-retirement. But this palliative care service that you are referring to, or when something unforeseen happens, like you do get cancer or motor neuron disease or HIV/AIDS, one hasn't planned for that, and one can never really anticipate how that's going to pan out and how much is enough, right? So as you were saying, often people come to you for quite a short time, but that could land up being a few months, it could be a year. And if it's not end of life that we're talking about, but rather the recuperation and support needed for people suffering from HIV/AIDS, cancer, and motor neuron disease, that could carry on for quite a number of years. And interesting that you are giving support not only to the person needing that support, but also to the family and helping them cope with the circumstances. I was reading quite an interesting report that was published by Matan Abraham, Catherine Dreyer, Mario Djuricic, and Shivani Ramji from South Africa. It was presented to the South African Actuarial Society. And it said that the healthcare costs in the last year of life were found to be 3.51 times higher than in the second last year of life. At StratAstute Consulting, when we talk about sustainable business strategies, we certainly look to the Sustainable Development Goals. And Sustainable Development Goal number 3 talks about good health and wellness. And I think that certainly is what St. Francis Hospice addresses. So, Melanie, for those of us who haven't looked after a loved one or aren't in this phase of our lives yet where we need this extra care and support, help us plan forward. What should we be thinking about in terms of planning ahead for palliative care or this types of specialist support if one were to contract a disease?
Well, I think if we use, I think our most common, if I can call it common, most common disease that we can use as an example, let's talk about cancer, because I'm sure this is something that affects all of us. Every family is affected by it. No, absolutely no doubt that the financial implications of a disease like cancer, which can go on for many, many, many years, are enormous. But remember, we are not talking only about medical aid users or people in business. We are talking about really the poorest of the poor as well. I think it's impossible to actually prepare people in those circumstances for this journey. All we can do is love and care for them. And palliative care is the way to do that. You know, if I have a wonderful medical aid and I have a bad diagnosis, I am going to chuck the book at this disease. I'm going to fight it tooth and nail. I'm going to use my medical aid and I'm going to try every therapy that everybody suggests. But we come into the picture when that is no longer viable, when the time comes when the doctor says there is nothing further that we can do for you. And that time does come for a lot of people, not only elderly. For a lot of people, that time does come. And this is where we come into the picture. And all we can do is administer palliative care to give them the very, very best death possible, to put it bluntly.
Melanie, the St. Francis Hospice has been running for about 40 years, or just short of 40 years now. So we certainly hope that as a Lift As We Rise community and our ecosystem, we can somehow make a difference. And listeners, you know, to those who have joined in and stayed till the end to listen, thank you for listening in. And please do like, share this video so that more people can hear about the fantastic work that Melanie and her team are doing at the St. Francis Hospice. And Melanie, once again, can you share with us those details where people could donate financially or in kind?
Certainly. So it's St. Francis Hospice. My email address is melanie@stfrancishospice.za.org, or our phone number is 041 360 7070. Roshni, can I just end off by saying, just by reading you something that Dame Cecily Saunders, who was the founder of the modern hospice movement in the UK, this is what she wrote, and this kind of encapsulates what hospice care is. And she says, you matter because you are you, and you matter to the end of your life. And we will do all we can, not only to help you die peacefully, but also to live until you die. And that really encapsulates everything that hospice is about and everything that it does.
Melanie, thank you very much for sharing that. And we must have been thinking alike. So I was saying, you know, this month, the world lost 99-year-old Prince Philip. And to close this talk today, I found a beautiful quote by Princess Diana, which I think is quite appropriate for the conversation we've had. And it says, carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you. So Melanie, thank you for being with us today. Listeners, thank you for joining us. Remember to lift as we rise so that sustainably we can thrive. We'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.